Let's go to Jeff Kerr joining us now here on Birds 365. Jeff, welcome to the show, man. That's a Penn State alum, Saquon Barkley Day, Jeff.
Big
I
Jeff
know you
Kerr
enjoyed
Day,
watching
man.
that.
Historic performance. And by the way, I'm also going to throw in Jeff Kerr. Thank God Penn State has James Franklin, because James Franklin, what brass what on James Franklin
Yeah.
to beat the Minnesota Golden Gophers and save the season. I never hear any love for James Franklin.
Yeah, so, it's funny because the Penn State cult that everybody likes to joke about, they act like Joe Paterno won 10 games every year. He did in the 70s. But this is the first time Penn State has won 10-plus games in 3 straight seasons since 1980 through 1982. So Joe wasn't doing that in my lifetime. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. Jeff, what'd you think of Saquon Barkley last night, man? 302 yards, 255 on the ground, 270-plus yard touchdowns. Just insane what he is doing right now for this football team. What'd you make of it last night?
For anybody that wanted to listen to me over the last 7-8 years when I was harping on get Saquon Barkley on a real football team, and you'll see what he does. This is me patting myself on the back.
That's correct, Jeff. You deserve credit for that.
Yeah, that is the whole. I've had people tell me, nobody here, but I've had people tell me he's not going to make that much of a difference. He's not as good as you think he is. I'm like, you watch the New York Giants play football like I do, you'll understand what type of difference he makes. I mean, the guy, Saquon Barkley, has 500 yards from scrimmage over his last 2 games. The last person to do that was Walter Payton in 1977. I think that was the best game I've ever seen from a running back since Adrian Peterson had 296 in his rookie year. And I didn't think anybody was going to come close to putting up numbers like that. Saquon did it. He's the first running back to have 300 scrimmage yards in the game since that Adrian Peterson game. And there's John, you were at that game.
Yeah, 296, and very similar situation where you need a bunch of long runs, and obviously Saquon got the 2 70-yard runs, and the other team is generally beaten to a pulp by the offensive line, and that's as good. And look, I say it all the time. Adrian Peterson is the best combination of power and speed and running ability. He did that jump cut before Saquon did, but this is the closest I've seen to Adrian physically. And Saquon's actually a better receiver than Adrian was, and he's a better pass protector than Adrian was. So as an all-around player, he's actually better. As a pure runner, I'd still lead Adrian a little bit, but he's impressive physically. I mean, when he hits the hole, and there's some massive holes, and again, I give all the credit to this offensive line, but he's gone. And that's the difference between him and a Miles Sanders, or Miles might get 40, might get 30 in his prime. DeAndre Swift might get 30. He gets 72.
It's insane. Just the 70-yard touchdown run to start the second half. When I saw the A gap open up, I'm like, okay, well, Saquon's going to get at least 20 on this play. Then he does the jump cut, and you're like, okay, he's gone. And I think this is why the Eagles made Mekhi Becton a right guard. I think this is why
he's been unbelievable.
Yeah, I think this is it. I think they knew what they had in Saquon Barkley and said, you know what, we got to put the 5 best linemen on the field. It does not matter. We'll teach this guy how to play guard. We don't care if it's left or right. And he got that trial by fire in minicamp when Landon Dickerson got hurt, and they said, okay, he could do this. What's going to happen when we get Dickerson back? And Tyler Steen opened the door. And look, I think Saquon could do this with Tyler Steen too, but when you're running behind Cam Jurgens, who's been playing unbelievably these last couple weeks, Mekhi Becton, Lane Johnson, you got that. Oh, by the way, now you got Jordan Mailata back. So you got Jordan. You got Landon Dickerson. Like, Saquon Barkley behind this offensive line, it really is. It's a cheat code, John.
Yeah, it's been impressive to say the least, and I'm the first to raise my hand. I didn't think it would be this good.
I almost texted you last night. I was going to joke with you. I'm like, and by the way, John, Saquon Barkley already has 1,600 scrimmage
I know.
yards.
Well, by the way, everybody makes fun of that prediction. Nobody went higher than me besides Ed.
I know, but it's not that. That's not what
Eagles history.
People are stuck on the other stuff you said, John.
Well, the other stuff was what? That he's not as well-rounded as Christian McCaffrey as a pass
Good, not
receiver?
great. I think that's what I think about. I mean, good, not great he's clearly great, man.
Which is still a fair evaluation if you look at the Giants. And
exactly. I mean, I had 6 years of a sample size.
Honestly, for Eagles fans, like instead of directing your attention towards someone like John, direct your attention at the Giants beat writers who were all on me last week saying, "Oh, you know, we're better without him. We're better running the football without him." I said, "Okay, Saquon Barkley has more rushing yards than the Giants. He has more.
He had more total yards than the Rams last night. By himself.
Yeah, he had more total yards than the Giants football team yesterday.
I saw that. Jeff, for me, he has eclipsed A.J. Brown, I think, as the most talented player on this team. John does not like that take. What say you?
Eagles are 8-0 when A.J. Brown's on the field.
I think it's 9-0, right?
Yeah.
No, it's
8-0.
Yeah, it's 8-0.
I mean, we already have proof of what they are without A.J. Brown. And by the way, Saquon was out there.
I just think A.J. Brown opens up so much for Saquon because you have to defend A.J. Brown. If you put 8 in the box to stop Saquon, A.J. Brown's going to get 200 off you. Period.
Yeah, I mean, I first of all, Saquon was it. Now, Saquon, it doesn't even matter because Saquon is very humble. That's one of the things about him I love, by the way, is humility. I tried to compliment him last week on his pass protection. He basically said he sucked. I'm like, he's the only guy who can pass protect. It's like a lost art in the NFL. But he's so humble. Like, he doesn't want the accolades. He doesn't want people telling him how great he is. So I don't even like he says AJ's, most people say AJ's the best player on the Eagles. Some of it's self-deprecation, I'm sure, but Nick's pretty firm on that. He's called him the best players he ever coached.
Honestly,
he's
John,
been around for a while.
Saquon will never want this out, but I think he gets his own vindication when the Eagles win football games. I think that's all that matters to him.
Oh, yeah. And I think part of it is I do think he's motivated by the Giants. No question.
They all are. All these former Giants are motivated, whether it's Saquon. By the way, they all had good games yesterday. Saquon, Leonard Williams, Julian Love. Like, the Giants allowed talented players to walk or gave up on talented players.
Yeah. Well, the Giants are a terrible organization. But even if you want to go back, by the way, again, maybe self-deprecation, maybe not. When Nick was trolling the Giants fan, we got your best player. Saquon was the first to say, well, Dexter Lawrence is the best player on the Giants. And he's right. I mean, I'm just saying that's why when I say I try to elevate the conversation. I mean, there's better players in the world. Patrick Mahomes exists. Lamar Jackson exists. TJ Watt exists. You're going to see 2 of them over the next couple of weeks. Miles Garrett's on a bad football team. He exists.
I can't wait for Sunday, by the way.
I try to elevate the conversation.
I can't wait to see Lamar and Derrick Henry live. I can't wait for that, and I can't wait to see how Jalen and Saquon counter that. Sunday's going to be a fun day in Baltimore.
Yeah, no doubt.
That is going to be a fun match.
Jeff, Birds are now winners of 7 straight. They're 9-2 on the year. But, Jeff, they lost Brandon Graham last night, who was not playing like your typical 36-year-old does in the NFL. That dude was playing at a high level, and he was playing at a pretty high rate. The Birds are now low at edge rusher position. The war of attrition here this is when it really matters most, Jeff. People talk about that all the time, war of attrition in the NFL. Well, now's when it really counts. How do you see the Eagles handling the loss of Brandon Graham? Do you think some players could move around? What do you see right now the Eagles doing to make up for that loss?
I mean, I could see Milton Williams play the edge more. I think you're going to have to see Jordan Davis play on third downs more. But if you want my honest opinion, I think they got to sign somebody. they're going to have to sign somebody for depth. Like right now, you got Josh Sweat. You can move Milton Williams on the edge. I mean, Bryce Huff's out. You got Josh Sweat. You got Nolan Smith. Jalix Hunt. Is Jalix ready for this? Probably not. John, do you know Yannick Ngakoue's available?
No,
I thought he got claimed.
So yeah, he got claimed by the Patriots, I think maybe.
Yeah, I know. I thought he got.
By the way, he can't play a lick. You don't want.
No, he can't. But you know what I mean. Like,
I think that's everybody that's out there right now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't everybody that's out there right now can't really play a lick?
He did get claimed by the Patriots.
Yeah,
I thought, but yeah, he.
I mean, look at the guys on their practice squad. Like, if you can name the Eagles.
Sean Mathis, baby.
Sean Mathis, yep. If you can name them.
Good guy. I talked to him last week in the locker room.
Is David Anaya still there?
No, he got cut for O'Shawn Mathis. Teron Jackson is back. So they might.
Yeah, so he'll be the elevation.
Yeah, Teron Jackson. Because he's played for the team, he knows. Yeah, they're in trouble on the edge, and we'll see. Right now, though, they're playing a style of football where, again, they're bullying people. The question is, can you bully the bully? We're going to get the first indication of that this week, as you mentioned, Jeff.
There are 3 teams in the NFL that I think just bully people, and 2 of them are going to play this week, and the other one plays at Ford Field.
Yep. And that's a very small sample size. But has that, like, I don't want to pick on him, but I just saw it, and I'm not picking on him. I don't know him, but Andrew Perloff, so he's got a show, I think,
McLovin.
McLovin, and he said, basically, and a half of it shtick. Obviously, he's playing a character, as most morning shows, if he's on, do. But now it's Super Bowl or bust for the Eagles. What the hell was it before?
Yeah, wasn't it like that the whole season? Like, I feel like they're the top 2 teams in the NFC is Super Bowl or bust, and that's Detroit and Philly.
Yeah, I mean, that's why everybody was so disappointed early when they were 2-2. Everybody was losing their mind because it was Super Bowl or bust.
They were talking about that on one of the national morning shows this morning. It might have been NFL Network. I forget when I turned on the TV, and they were talking about the Eagles are Super Bowl contender, and one of the guys said,
like,
so when weren't they a Super Bowl contender? Yeah. It's just, are we just starting to realize how good they are? Maybe.
I'm mystified but it tells you what one performance, like, this sport is so unique because you get the highs are so high and the lows are so lows.
I'm actually writing a piece today. It's going to upset Chiefs fans, but recent history points this out. The Chiefs have won 8. They've won 8 one-score games in their first 11 games. The last 2 teams that have done that, last year's Eagles, we know how they ended up. And remember, the Eagles were 10-1, just like the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And the 2022 Vikings. And we know how they ended up. They lost the playoff game to the freaking Giants.
Daniel Jones. That's the reason the Giants paid Daniel Jones all that money.
I have, and Saquon knows this.
Yeah.
I've talked to him. I've talked to plenty of former Giants that are on the Eagles, by the way. I said the Giants' biggest mistake was not
believing that game meant something.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, that franchise is content with losing by 31 points in a divisional playoff game. I saw the Eagles get destroyed 25 years ago in a playoff game to the Giants, and they said that's not good enough. We got smoked by this team 3 times in a year. It's not going to happen again. It never happened again. It never did. And that's
I always say, Jeff, the hardest thing for front offices is to be honest with themselves.
Yep.
And, like, if you beat an Ed Donatel defense, Ed hasn't coached in the league again.
Yeah.
Ed Donatel's
a 4-26 defensive coordinator, by the way.
Yeah. And that defense was historically bad. But since we're bringing up defense and Ed Donatel, ironically, he was a Big Fangio guy. You got all these Big Fangio guys. Sean Desai, Nolan Smith was out there giving him a big hug yesterday. We get all these Big Fangio guys, but nobody runs it like Big Fangio.
Yeah, we saw last year Sean Desai. No one runs it like. By the way, John, we were talking about this in the CBS Slack room last night. A lot of people were busting my chops after Saquon had a second touchdown run. I put out the question at halftime: who's the MVP of the Eagles? Is it Saquon or is it Vic Fangio? And everybody goes, "You actually are going to put this up to debate?" And I was putting up a bunch of Eagles defensive stats from this year compared to last year. Saquon has that run. They go, "You want to take that back?" I'm like, I don't know, because the Eagles have a top 5 defense.
I would they can make the argument they have the best defense in the NFL.
Yeah.
I was talking yesterday. I'm like, if people say I understated Saquon's impact on the Eagles, which I certainly did.
I understated Vic.
My far bigger understatement was Vic Fangio. I said the ceiling was 15-16, middle of the road. The ceiling.
Yeah, that's how I would. I said to Don Bell and Pat Allen yesterday on Sunday kickoff before my segment. And then I said during my segment, I said I thought they'd be. I said they were a top 15 defense. They would go 13-4. I said now they're a top 5 defense. So now how many wins are they going to get?
And you couple that with a running game like they have right now, a top 5 defense, and I think I'm more closer to John. I think it's top 3 right now. It might even be top 1 when you look at the stats.
If you go by the stats, it's top 3.
Yeah, so I mean, right there, plus a running game, plus the physical nature of this football team. I mean, they submit every team they play against. Teams just can't hang in there with the Eagles.
By the way, the quarterback has top 5 passing numbers during this winning streak, and he's got top 7 passing numbers for the season.
Jeff, I said this earlier on the show. I said that I'm curious to hear your take on this because, I think part of what makes Jalen Hurts such an electric player is that he's been able to he's such a playmaker, right? He makes plays when plays break down. He's just got that innate playmaker ability. I think he's learned how to be a game manager this year. And maybe that's not the perfect word, game manager, but I just mean in a sense
there's nothing wrong
he doesn't
with
have to do it all the time. You got great players around you. He's playing efficient football. Collinsworth gave a stat last night about how many turnover-worthy plays he's had in the last 7 games. Newsflash. It's not many. He's not putting the ball in harm's way.
That's why they're winning. He's not turning the football. That's why they're winning. Remember, Zander, we were going off after the Bucs game. Like, that was the biggest issue with this team. He was turning the football. He has 2 turnovers in his last 7 games.
7 games, yep.
And you could argue one was a great play by Trayvon Diggs. Like, he's had, the way he's playing right now, the Eagles are damn tough to beat because he just doesn't. Like, on that 3rd and 5, he rolls out. Does he hold on the ball too long? Yes, but there's a reason for that. Because he's a running quarterback.
Right.
And running quarterbacks make plays. Patrick Mahomes can hold on to the ball too long, too. He sprinted for the first down, kept the drive alive. That's what you want to see out of this guy. If he takes a sack, so be it. I'd rather see him do that than throw a pick.
Agreed.
Yeah. Jalen Hurts, until the 2023 season, had always been a good ball security quarterback, always. So I thought there would be a regression back to the mean, and there has been. And you're right. If the Eagles don't shoot themselves in the foot, they're very difficult to beat. You go even in the first half when it was 13-7, they kept the Rams in the game longer than they needed to be. And that's, the second red zone drive, they had a illegal man downfield. They had a offside, which you never see.
Penalties that were declined, by the way. Yeah.
And then you had an illegal motion on Dallas Goedert. Like they shot themselves in the foot to keep the Rams in the game. And then nobody talked about it. Nobody brought it up. This is why they need me out there, because I'll bring up the shittiest moments, even in the biggest wins. What the hell was Nick Sirianni doing up at the end of halftime? What the hell was that? Like that, if you're in a close
moment, no.
What is going on there? You get a sack on 2nd down. There's about 1:15 left. You get a sack.
You let the clock run.
And then I'm like, that's fine if you want to go into halftime. I'm cool with that. But they let the clock run. Then the Rams ran like a draw or something, get 8 yards. Then they call timeout. When,
Then they
and
get
there's
then they
33
get the
seconds
ball.
left.
Yeah. How about when it was 4th down? And I'm like, I'm just scratching my head at this point. I'm like, look, I had no problem with the decision. But
No.
whenever Kellen Moore called, I'm like, what is
Are we sure
this?
that was Kellen Moore? Was that like what was that? That was you talking about the quarterback draw where he just snapped it and he raised. He has 7
Yeah.
seconds on the clock. I don't know. What
Yeah,
the
like
hell
were
that
they
was.
just trying to kill 7 seconds? Was that like the thing? They
And,
like,
if you're
That
trying
was
to
not
kill
a great
7
way to kill
seconds,
7 seconds.
yeah, just run around for 2 seconds and heave it downfield, a Hail Mary. What I mean, that was, again, it doesn't matter, and people forget about it. That's what bothers me. Like, people complain about 4th and 3s or 4th and 2s or taking an extra yard on a tush push because it doesn't work. And you have a legitimate, like, what the hell are you doing moment at the end of the half, really, too. And it's not a concern because you win the game. That's the stuff you got to worry about. Because if you do that against a good team, it might beat you in the it might bite you in the ass.
you know what's crazy, John? Nick Sirianni, it wasn't a loophole, by the way. It just shows how inefficient the officials were at multiple times.
Well, it should be a loophole, and they should change that today.
Yeah, I mean, Nick just finding a way. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you can't change something you already declined, but he did, and I'm like, congrats to Nick. That was the turning point in the football game.
That was weird how that played
I
out.
was like, wait, you can do that? I'm like, as someone who coaches another sport, I'd love to find a way to do that. I'd be telling the head coach, change it.
Yeah, right. I mean, you do that all the time if you could.
Well,
If you could
first, yeah, but here's my
have a
problem with
second
that.
crack at it.
First of all, it is a loophole, and it's like Belichick when he did the formational trick against Baltimore. They'll close it in season. That's how stupid that
They
is.
might close it this week.
Yeah, they'll close it because you can't do that. You shouldn't be allowed to do that. But number one, even if you want to believe that he took advantage of it, what in Nick Sirianni's mind did you think even originally they weren't going to go for that on 4th and 3 at that stage of the game rather than back it up to 3rd and 13? I mean, there's not even a 1% chance they're not going for that. So what's all the rigmarole for? Just take the penalty.
By the way, John,
I'm not giving them credit for that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, this is another interesting part of this game, too. Just knowing, I know a couple of the Rams beat writers pretty well. And a lot of the editors of the blog sites that were at that game last night. I had a couple texts, this before Saquon said the second one. They're like, we're not surprised he's doing this. Like, the Rams have a terrible run defense. They have guys that can't tackle. I think they said they had like 17 missed tackles or something last night. And I said, well, the Eagles, they said, well, that's what we're saying. The Rams just aren't on the Eagles level. Like, they just can't beat a football team like this.
Yeah, they out physical teams, Jeff. That's what it comes down to. The Rams couldn't tackle them last night. They couldn't tackle Saquon. And they couldn't tackle A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
The crazy part is, like, this is a good, like, I still think the Rams are a good football team when their guys are on the field. Like, it's kind of like when, okay, you put Saquon on the field, you put A.J. Brown on the field, you put Lane Johnson on the field. Eagles are going to be very tough to beat. Just like the Rams are with Cooper, Puka, and Kyron Williams, who, by the way, the Eagles shut down Kyron Williams last night.
Yeah, they did. 2 fumbles, too. That was a big play early in the game because the Rams were moving the football early.
Yeah.
They had, like, I think it was 130 yards in the first quarter, and then they
had
first
two drives.
Yeah.
And then Vic said, all right, I got a beat on this broad.
The Eagles held the Rams to negative 1.7 yards per play in the second quarter.
How many times did he run that same waggle bootleg?
The same play. Yeah.
I mean, give me a break. This guy is the most overrated fucking coach in the history of football.
So you don't like his clones either?
No, I don't like his clones. Well, part of it. Don't get me wrong. The problem is there's only about 5 Vic Fangios, and you play that way, you get so repetitive with Vic Fangio, you're cooked. That's easy for him. And that's why he's owned him forever and will continue to own him.
Well, that's why Vic is such high regard, because everybody's trended toward Shanahan, McVay, O'Connell, all these guys are looking to find these guys. The Bobby Slow. Look at Houston. How much Houston's offense has stagnated this year, by the way.
Yeah.
That's why,
they're so repetitive.
Yeah.
They're so repetitive.
You know what? That's why Ben Johnson gets so much love around the NFL. I swear the Lions run a different offense every week. Every week they find something different to run.
Yeah.
I'm watching their game against the Colts yesterday. I'm like, I don't think I've seen that play before. I don't think I've seen I've seen the formation.
Because I'll ask Eagles fans. Because motion was the big thing. You just saw the king of motion. Did that look like a creative offense to Eagles fans?
No.
It didn't last night.
It is.
Is the Miami Dolphins offense creative? No.
No. That's one, reason for my 17th concussion. Motion is creative. No, it's not. The guy runs the same shit over and over, and Vic's got a beat on it by the third drive.
I forget who it was last night. It was before the game. It might have even been Collinsworth that said, not like the Eagles are highly creative, but they got guys that make it work. And then at the end of the day, players make plays. And I know people don't like Chris Collinsworth, but at the end of the day, he's right. Players make the plays.
No, he is.
No, 100%. It's players first. Players,
and he would know. He was a damn good football player.
And by the way, Nick Sirianni says that all the time. Players over plays. Scheme.
It's always the players. It's always the players. Like,
speaking of players, guys, is Jalix Hunt ready for the task that is now set before him to be a contributor off the edge as a first-year player out of Houston Christian University? Jalix Hunt, are you ready for the moment? What say you, Jeff Kerr?
It's going to have to be. It doesn't matter. It's going to have to be.
But it's interesting because we had a super chatter before, Jeff, saying, well, you can move Zach Bond to the edge and play
Trotter. No. Why would you want to do that?
And play Trotter. What the hell's wrong with Jalix? Jalix Hunt's the 3rd round pick. Yeah, Trotter's the 5th round pick. What, because his name is Trotter?
This is why you draft Jalix Hunt over Peyton Wilson, right? This is why you do it. This is how you justify yourself.
Is there any Howie moves left? Is there anybody out there, Jeff? You're a stat guy. You know more. Is there anybody out there that this team could bring in that would be?
Well, that's the thing. I gotta look at it. Remember, I'm on like 6 hours of sleep here, Zan.
Yeah.
6. That's
remember last year when Vic was in Miami and they lost Jalen Phillips and Andrew Van Ginkel at the end of the season. Do you remember who they brought in, Jeff? They brought in guys off the street.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to remember who they brought now. I remember they were desperate last year.
Yeah, it did not work.
Didn't they bring in
It did not work.
It wasn't Emmanuel Ogbah, was it?
It might have been. They brought in a couple guys straight off the street. I'll try to look it up in one of the breaks.
I mean, honestly, you're better off just going with Jalix.
Yeah, you are.
And
you're better
Jackson.
off. Toronto, yeah, you're better off. You are. It did not work out. I mean, those are really good players, Jalen Phillips and Andrew.
I tweeted this last night, and a lot of Eagles fans definitely agree with me on Milton Williams is going to make some big money this offseason.
Yeah.
Guess
He's
what?
Playing
now,
really good.
That's the guy. That's the guy you moved
himself, man. Bet on. That's what people are talking. We've been talking about the Zach Bond extension. Why would you not bet on yourself if you're Zach Bond?
No one else is going to bet on you, so you might as well bet on yourself.
Yeah. Milton bet on himself, and look how that's working out.
I mean, it's working out. It's working out in the interior, but can he rush the passer like we would need him to in that outside role?
I don't think so, but he can give you competent snaps. He's not an edge rusher, so he's not going to rush like an edge rusher.
I mean, you're going to see more Moro Jomo and Thomas Booker too. By the way, I felt bad for Thomas Booker last night. I didn't think he had bad penetration on that one touchdown run.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of it's garbage time.
What about Jordan Davis? What do you got? You guys think he'll be able to handle if they play him in a 3 technique and a more 4-man front, more traditional DT role, so they can slide Milton outside? Do you think he can handle that? I mean, they're going to have to get creative, and I trust Vic Fangio to get creative because I think he's earned the trust of me and everybody else in Philly so far this year. But boy, it's gonna be an uphill battle for sure when you look at the bodies in the roster.
Yeah, it's just crazy to think, Zander. Like we're talking about this, like how just how much of an impact Brandon Graham was on the field for this
I
football
know.
team. It's I would not have expected this at age 36.
Well, and all of a sudden now the Bryce Huff thing matters even that much more because I know Bryce Huff wasn't playing good, but now you just need body. I mean, you need somebody to take up some snaps.
And I think it's going to be
entirely productive.
Vic is, a lot like Jim Schwartz, and he will come up with stuff you don't even think about. But if I were a betting man, I'd say Milton gets more work outside. And that means Jordan's got to play more in those 4-man fronts. And
but by the way, John, it's like you said, like we said with Jalen Sumlin for third round, Jordan Davis first round pick. It's time to show up.
Yeah. Well, I think he does well in his role, but now he's got to expand his role.
Yeah. But again, that's why you were picked in the first round.
Yeah.
You're more than just a one-trick pony.
And Jalen Hunt as well. Maybe Jalen Hunt is, you throw him into the deep end of the pool. That's what they did with Cooper. They said, all right, fuck it. We're going to throw him in there.
They did with Quignon in training camp. They said,
yeah,
you're playing the slot, kid. Okay.
Yeah.
No warning.
Why is it that Jordan did? And John, you would know this better. Jeff, you too, from being down there. But when I look at like some of Jordan Davis's traits, and not to be like a combine guy, but most nose tackles don't run like that. Like I would think I know he's a big dude, but I would think he would be pretty good in a traditional DT role. Why does he struggle at that role and he's better as a nose? Just because he's just the sheer size of him, or because he's pretty athletic? I mean, he moves good for a big man.
Yeah, well, he moves very well. That's the reason why. I remember talking to Dama. Dama would say he could be an edge rusher. I'm like, no. There's more to being an edge rusher than just athleticism. There's a lot of handwork. There's a lot of technique. You see some of these spin moves.
I think conditioning really affected him too early in his career.
What affected him?
Conditioning.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. No doubt. He's not used to playing a lot with Georgia. Nobody is, because they generally are blowing out half their schedule. So then you got to get to the NFL.
They have 6 deep on the D line who are 5-star recruits.
And then Jalen Carter deserves a lot of credit because he's playing a boatload of snaps, and he's been playing at a high level and improved his conditioning. With Jalen, I think it's just that he's not Jordan. It's not as he's just not effective as a pass rusher, and he's a run down defender. But
it's like what we talked about last week, John. We thought he was going to be a Lodi Nada. That's what the Eagles thought when they drafted.
Yeah, that type of player, and he hasn't reached quite that level, but he's been fine. But the problem is he was the 13th overall pick, so more is expected, and more will be needed. But the guy's got to be Jalen Hunt. The guy's got to be challenged. And remember, even if Jalen Hunt plays well, you still need a 4th because they have multiple injuries.
That's what I'm concerned about. Who's behind Jalen Hunt?
It's not just a one-man replacement. I mean, you got Huff gone, Graham gone.
That's why I said,
remember what happened to Josh Sweat last year when Josh Sweat played too many snaps. Well, now he's going to have to play that much more snaps, and we're getting late.
And he got banged up yesterday.
Yeah, he did.
So we're going to have to see the injury report this week with Josh Sweat as well.
By the way, you're going to get beat up next week when you play Baltimore because they beat everybody up.
Yeah, that's it. There a lot of good things happened last night in Los Angeles for the Eagles. One really bad thing happened, and that's Brandon's injury.
Honestly, when Brandon went on last night and was just talking, I'm like, wow, that just dampens everything with this football team right now. It's like, it's like the Eagles won, but your grandpa died.
And it's so true, Jeff. John broke it on our postgame show last night. The whole mood of the show changed. I'm like, what? Brandon Graham's out for the year, and after. By the way, I mean, he played a great game last night before he got hurt. He was, I mean, that third down sack, he looked like a 26-year-old shot out of a cannon coming around the edge. Matthew Stafford didn't even see him coming. He didn't even expect the pressure yet.
On such a big night for him too. Like,
he played.
When you beat Clyde Simmons for third all time.
I know.
In franchise history, that's Clyde freaking Simmons here. The guy led the NFL in sacks twice with this team. He was, Reggie White's right-hand man. Like, that, it's insane. By the way, so many Eagles fans,
he's Mr. Eagle. He beat Bednarik. He's played more games than anybody else.
Only
and
players
this is the end. Yeah. What an end, because he played one of his best games of the year.
I said, people ask me, to you, what's the greatest play in Eagles history? Like Brandon Graham forcing the fumble of Tom Brady. Yeah. This is not a debate. It's funny how the Eagles might have had 3 of their 5 greatest plays in franchise history in one game.
Yep.
And the other, by the way, the other 2 are in championship games. Steve Van Buren's touchdown run, no one ever talks about. It's one of the NFL's ever greatest play. Everybody goes, "What's so great about the 1-yard touchdown run?" Well, I'm like, it wasn't a 1-yard touchdown run. It was like a 3-yard touchdown. And it was in the driving snow, 7-0 against Chicago. The only score in
most people don't go back to Steve Van Buren.
But then, but Chuck McNarick tackling Paul Hornung on the final play, going, "This game is effing over." That's the other one. Because if he doesn't tackle Hornung at 36, Packers win. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, you talk about the Super. I still think that the biggest play in the Super Bowl, maybe not that,
Zach
obviously.
Ertz's 4th down catch.
Yep. That's the biggest play, because they lose the game if they don't go for it. They lose the game. Never mind convert it.
By the way, Nick Foles had so many clutch throws in that game. By far the most clutch he had. Oh, and by the way, he threaded 2 defenders and threw a touchdown to a running back in that game. I've never seen it.
Jeff, good stuff, man. Happy to get you on after Saquon Barkley goes off. You've been tooting the Saquon horn for many years.
Baby. Saquon. Boy.
John, I do have to ask you, what did you think of Coach James Franklin's performance? Boy, he's got some balls, man.
I'm not even joking, because as Jeff knows, I tend to joke with the Penn State people. But I think I've always said to you, Jeff, they're completely wrong about James Franklin. He's a good recruiter. That's what college coaches are. They're not coaches that recruit. That's how they win. They win by recruiting the best talent. And he's a great recruiter. And B, like, if he's not aggressive in that game, they lose to the Gophers, and
they lose and they're out.
You got to win the big one, though, Jeff. James has got to win the big one.
Well, they do have to win, but it's hard to win.
Come on,
it is.
You can't compete with certain schools, but things are changing. Your school, Alabama, you can't replace Nick Saban.
I will say this as an Alabama fan: they better not make the top 12, the playoff. They have 3 losses right now. They better not.
Might, but I
already saw an article of somebody that put them in at 12. I'm like, bullshit. Get them out of there.
Zander, you never reminded me of like the whole like pro SEC. It just means more crap. But don't you think it's funny how the teams that were just shitting on Indiana for weeks about, and look, I didn't disagree with them, but Indiana, they haven't played anybody. They don't deserve to be here. Blah, 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 blah. They get killed by Ohio State. It's like these SEC teams, they get their just dessert. And then all of a sudden, they get Indiana right back in it because Ole Miss and Texas A&M. And
I know. Everybody in the SEC loses. Yeah. Look, the SEC was great for a long time. They don't appear to be holding that up. And as John just mentioned, there's a new era of college football loading with everything that's going on in NIL and the expanded playoff. And so it's going to be interesting.
I love it. I love this 12-team playoff. I
like it too. I do think it gives more of an opportunity.
But Ohio State's a blue blood as well, and they are. On
Michigan's a blue. Did you see how much Michigan's paying for that quarterback? It's going to be over like $4 million.
Yeah. It's tough to compete with. And Notre Dame, Army was a great story. And my God, I sat down, I go, this is an interesting game at Yankee Stadium. It's over like 2 minutes in. I don't know.
Yeah, Notre Dame, boy, they're pretty good this year. It'll be interesting to see what they can do.
It's honestly crazy how they lost to Northern Illinois at home. But hey, that's college football now. It's like the gap is. And you know what, Zander? It's funny. Like I was a proponent of expanding the playoffs since Penn State won the Big Ten and got screwed. And
I'm sure you've been a proponent of it for a while. I never had to beat Jeff because Alabama made it every year in the top 4.
But Nick Saban has always been one of my favorite coaches. Like that guy just found a way to win every
Well,
single year.
the new guy, he ain't no Nick Saban.
No.
No.
I feel bad for Caden DeBoer. Like
I don't feel bad for him at all. He needs to go back to the Big 12 or the Pac 12, wherever the hell he came from. He's not.
Yeah, well, the Pac. By the way,
Get the
John,
fuck outta
that was
here.
the highlight of my weekend. The Pac-2 championship game. Oregon State wins the
Pac-2?
Get that
Pac-2.
guy out of Alabama, man. All right, Jeff, we got to run, man. Appreciate you doing it. Good
Thanks,
stuff. We'll
bud.
talk to you next week.
Yep, see you guys. Thanks.
You going to Baltimore? Get ready.
I
you
am.
know where the parking lot is.
Yeah, I'm the only one who apparently knows where it is. So, everybody make sure they're on time this week.
All right, little Jeff Kerr, Johnny
I'll
Mac,
talk to you.
carpool going on. Good stuff. All right, Jeff, thank you, man.
Yep, see you guys.
Good stuff there from Jeff Kerr. Great to have him join us here on a big Saquon Barkley day. John, I got to get to a couple super chats, and then we'll get Chris Franklin up at 9:20. Looking forward to talking to Chris. Look, now I'm getting chirped, John. Now I'm just getting. Hey, Zander, 24 Boomer Sooner. Dang, that might have been the most embarrassing loss.
By the way, I think I heard, which is pretty cool. I don't know because I don't watch many games on TV, and when I do, I'm usually not paying attention. But I saw them announce the lineups. You know, like my lot always says, Jeff Stoutland University.
Yeah.
I believe I heard Jalen Hurts say "Roll Sooners," which I thought was cool.
Did he combine?
Can people confirm that or deny? Because that's what I heard.
Yeah, I watched. I didn't pick that up, but I guess that's a combination of the two schools. Where
I thought it was pretty cool.
People think Jalen's in Oklahoma. Jalen does still like Alabama. He graduated.
Oh no, he loves Alabama.
Yeah,
but he loves Oklahoma as well. That's so I thought it was.
As he should.
I thought it was cool.
Oklahoma prepared him for the NFL.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. And I think because why would I hear that? But that's what I wasn't paying attention, but I could have sworn that's what he said. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. This would be great. Chuck Hutton, I want a Notre Dame Miami playoff game. I love that. Big Sills will be going crazy. A little Catholics versus convicts again.
I don't. Well, that was great, but I don't think this year would be the same.
Well, no, it wouldn't, but it would still be fun to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what to believe. Is Army really good? I don't know. But if they are,
they are Army, John. Their quarterback is
well,
can't really throw, but he can run.
But they were, whatever. They were undefeated. They were beating people like a drum. And if they're any good, if they're legit, well, then Notre Dame's really good. But I don't know if they're legit.
Good stuff, John. You did confirm. He did say that. Many said he did say that. So that was cool. Cool. Good pickup by you. Let's read a couple super chats, then we'll get to a break for Chris Franklin. James Carver checking in. James, thank you, brother. I'd be asking Jeffrey how much he's willing to roll out for a half a season of Aaron Donald off the shelf. And for SEC people, they saw and know JD can play 2-3 along with JD in tight and mint fronts. It's going to be interesting.
He can play anything. Anybody can play anything, James. You can line up anybody anywhere. We're talking about effectiveness in the NFL.
Yeah.
He hasn't proved to be effectiveness. Of course he can line 2-eye, 4-eye, 3. All it is where you're lining up. Everybody can line up. I can line up there. I'm not going to be effective.
You sure?
That's what we're talking about.
Actually, Howie, give my man Johnny Mac a call. You need a guy on the line.
It's a young man's game, but yeah, I mean he's going to have to play those. He's going to play, more in 4-man fronts, and he's going to have to play more in obvious pass rushing situations if they want to kick Milton outside. Now, I still think Jalen Hunt's going to get the majority of the work, and hopefully it works out. So it might be here and there, but either way, other guys are going to have to step up, and some of them on the interior.
Good stuff, James. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you checking in. Brian Garner checks in. The Rodgers touchdown was a miscommunication from DeJean. DeJean went in motion, and halfway through, he realized Reed had it covered. It caused Rodgers to play more of an inside position. I didn't pick up on that, John. Did you see?
Well, I haven't rewatched the game yet, but yeah, I'll see later. But I mean, the Eagles' defense, I talk about it all the time. It's very complicated. Their coverage schemes. It may look like somebody gets beat, and they're not the ones getting beat. That's why it's so impressive that young players have been able to handle the communication aspect of it. They played that corn dog motion early where they seamlessly, CJ just pointed it out and they seamlessly picked it up. That's what they blew the Super Bowl with. They're just much more prepared this season when it comes to stuff like that. But he may be correct. But for all the Isaiah Rodgers people, and there's a lot of them for some period, look, he didn't have a good game. I mean, it's clear he didn't have a good game. Slay's better. I hate to break it to you. Significantly better, but he is a good backup. And, he gets beat occasionally. They tried to take advantage of him. They did on a couple against very good players. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I think he lost all his confidence. John, you talk about that all the time, how much confidence matters in this game. These guys are humans. A lot of times I think people forget that. These guys are human beings. There's
By
a
the
human
way,
element to every game.
Some of the Matthew Stafford throws, as bad as they played, unbelievable.
And that one to the sideline, I think it was on Slay when they called Slay for a PI, but they declined. That was an insane throw to Puka Nacua. That was absurd on the outside.
Yeah, I mean, the other team has players too. Even when you have better players, they still have good players.
Yeah, he puts it on the rope for sure, Matthew Stafford. Good stuff there. Brian Garner, thank you for the super chat, brother. I appreciate it. Mike Kravik says, I feel bad for BG. Me too. John, do you think BG is going to come back? I know he's been talking about this as the retirement tour.
I talked about it a little bit. I'm sure he wants to come back. He doesn't want to go out that way. But he mentioned it depends on the Eagles. At some point, you got to turn the page on everybody. Unfortunately, that's the reality of the industry. And they probably see this and they're going to say, "Well, we got to get younger. We got to." So I'm going to guess this is still going to be it. And you know what you brought up last night on the show, and I think you're right. If that's the last man, that he goes out on top because he played a phenomenal game.
Phenomenal year so far, John. Not even game two, but I mean, great year for him, man. At 36
tremendous
years old.
year overall, and he played. That might have been his best game of the year. I haven't seen the PFF grades yet, but that might have been his best game of the year. He dominated.
Yeah, and also it's harder to return off an injury like that. It's one thing to finish up the season and be like, oh, yeah, I'm ready to come back. It's another thing to have that type of injury and then try and come back at 36. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. C-Tay checks in. Nolan Smith is going to have a lot more production if he gets a bigger role. Got 6 games to prepare him for the playoffs. You're not wrong about that, John. What do you think about Nolan Smith? You think he can handle this?
Well, I think he is going to have more production. This is where you got to be careful. It's not about, he's going to play more, so his numbers are going to go up. Is he going to be effective in this? That's the key. He's played pretty well this season. He's been big improvement from year one, obviously. Is he ready to be playing really, really major snaps? I don't know. One of the things I said about that Rams front is kind of same thing you subscribe to Nolan Smith. People are going to see that, especially and see him on the field and say, well, he might look like Jared Burst occasionally generating pressure, but I'm also going to beat the you-know-what out of him if I got a big physical offensive line. So we'll see. Can he be effective? But his numbers are going to go up because he's going to play more.
Well, yeah, we'll see how they make up for the loss of BG and Bryce Huff. Look, I never thought I would be clamoring to get Bryce Huff back, John, based on the way he started. But boy, we need that guy right now. Jason E. Gates checks in. Great win last night, LFG Birds. So do we try and sign someone at the end or just roll with who we got?
There's nobody to sign. There's nobody of relevance to sign.
Yeah.
And that's not saying they'll probably bring in somebody.
Yeah, they're going to need a body. I mean, even if
it's just a practice. Yeah. But when I say there's nobody to sign, anybody meaningful, that's why I bring up the Dolphins and what happened to them last year. You can't just bring people off the street at this stage of the year and expect them to be meaningful contributors. They're on the street for a reason.
Yeah.
Unless you do go talk somebody out of retirement like Aaron Donald, who said that, James. Aaron Donald's an inside player. Yeah. I mean, And he's not gonna come out.
Fletcher, are you out there? You want to come back so we can move Milton to the outside? Fletcher Cox, are you out there?
Fletcher's lost a lot of weight. That's another thing people don't,
He probably can't even do it anymore.
Yeah.
With how much weight he's lost. Philly Dom wanted the F-bomb, John, because he's the one who gave you the move Bond to the edge and played Trotter.
I think I did give an F-bomb, but yeah, come on. I like what? Why are you so high on Jeremiah Trotter Jr.?
Yeah, and you can't. You're getting all pro play right now at that linebacker position. You can't get.
I mean,
you're going to kill two positions with one move.
And you're putting a 5th round pick out there at the expense of a 3rd round pick because you're moving the third to take away the 3rd. It doesn't make sense at any level. Maybe Jalen Hunt can do it. Let's give him a chance first.
Yeah, we'll see.
And then if he fails miserably, maybe. But you're not taking Zach Bond off. That's not to say they rushed him a couple times last night. That was part of their plan. He can do it, and he's more of a Van Ginkel type who can do both. But he's played an all-pro level at all-ball linebacker. I'm not shifting that completely. That would be not only a dereliction of duty from Vic Fangio, it would take away from one of his greatest accomplishments. He's the only one who saw the guy and said, nope, that's an all-ball linebacker. And he's right.
Let's hope Vic can get it right again with whatever he decides to do to make up for this loss. Jason A-Team checks in. What a game last night. The BG injury is heartbreaking. God bless him. He was so good. One of the best Eagles of all time. Barkley's still MVP, not close. Definitely the MVP right now with the Eagles with how it's played out.
I think he's the MVP of the NFL on Wednesday. Wednesday.
Well, John,
Monday,
you know last night
November 25th.
I said last night after you were off, and I wish this wasn't a reality, but it is a reality. You know what else helps Saquon? Doing it on prime time when everybody's watching. Because there's a popularity element to this too.
Look, as an Eagles fan, I get why everybody wants him to be the MVP, and I think he would be the MVP today. At the end of the day, who gives a shit?
I don't care. No, I'm with you. I could care less about it. I mean, it would be cool.
If you win the Super Bowl, are you seriously going to be upset if Lamar Jackson wins another MVP or somebody else or Josh Allen wins the MVP? Who gives a shit about individual? And by the way, Saquon would be the first to tell you that. He got asked about MVP last week, and he said, I'm not thinking about that. And that's part of the reason why he's as great as he is, because he doesn't think about shit like that.
He's such a good pro, John. Even after the game last night, when he knew probably all the attention was on him, everybody was waiting. He goes on social media when he gets out of there and tweets, how about that offense? How about
he's the most humble guy in the world.
Yeah.
That's why I get a kick out of, like, there are certain guys I like. Brandon Graham. I always say, everybody asks me, who's your favorite Eagle? Well, I always say either Glenn Fry, Don Henley, or Joe Walsh. That's my standard comeback for the band, the Eagles, because I don't care about, but I do care about rooting for people. And Brandon Graham is one of the best people you're ever going to meet. So that kind of stuff. And Saquon's in that level category. So freaking humble. And that explains his greatness. I kind of wrote about that as opposed to across the street. You can see generational talent, and I hate that term, but I'm using it, across the street at the Wells Fargo Center occasionally. But what true greatness is when you marry that with work ethic and intangible stuff. And Saquon's got all of that in spades. And yeah, so for people who think I don't like Saquon Barkley, you couldn't be further off the beaten path. I just tell you the truth and what I think is going to happen. And I was wrong. I didn't see this impact. I got no problem admitting that.
Yeah, no doubt. Chris, we're going to get to you in just a minute, man. We appreciate you checking in this morning. Two more super chats and real quick, we'll get to Chris. Philly Dunn. I didn't mean use them all the time, but they could move them out there on occasion during the game.
They already move them out there on occasion. I mean,
so maybe it's an increased role somewhat. We'll see.
Yeah.
J5 gives an interesting take too. J5, appreciate it, man. We can also have a look with Sidney Brown in the box and Bond on the edge. We can play man and zone. John, what do you think of that?
I admire the pretzel twisting.
Yeah.
Well,
they're trying to get creative.
They play a shitload of zone to begin with, and that indication you're doing the same thing. You're essentially playing Zach on the edge, moving away from where he's playing an all-pro, and you're playing a safety at linebacker. Can work. Josh Metellus does it every week with Brian Flores' defense. Yeah, I don't see it happening.
Good stuff. Let's get to a break real quick, and we'll get to Chris Franklin. Let me tell you guys about the great people at BetUS. Go check them out right now, betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa, and use the promo code on your screen. It's YouTube150. It gives you 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit, and you get 125% on your second and third deposit, all up to $2,000. So deposit less and bet with more at BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. We'll be back in 3 minutes with Chris Franklin on the other side.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.